Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Fiona Boyd, co-founder and CEO of EdSmart. Today, we welcome school staff from Australia, New Zealand, and from around the world. As all of us are aware, the conditions in the world have changed vastly since the beginning of 2020, and particularly in the last couple of weeks. Schools in various territories are either shut early for holidays with a view to moving to online learning for a period, or still open for emergency workers' children, or some still open. All of this is due to the SARS-CoV-2 virus pandemic, which leads to COVID-19. I'm sure you're with me now because you know what I'm about to say next. It's true for you, and you've probably had the visceral experience of this recently. Schools and school communities need you now more than ever to help create a cohesive school community through quality communication and direction. This webinar is an extension of our COVID-19 SOS schools that we published a week ago, and we'll send this link through towards the end of this webinar, and also with the webinar recording. Today's webinar is called Emergency Management for Coronavirus. It's presented by Sam Sapuppo, EdSmart's Schools Advisor and 30-year veteran in independent schools leadership, who has experienced many emergencies and crises in his career in schools, and has now developed by experience a clear view on how to keep your school community together and functional in challenging times like these. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A session. To participate, please forward your questions in the Q&A box. You can start writing them now. We'll take a look. Any questions we don't get to in this session, we'll compile and send a response document to you with the webinar recording. Welcome again. Thank you for joining us. Over to you, Sam.
Okay, welcome everyone. Look, we all know all schools have emergency management plans in place, and this situation wouldn't be any different, except that the real challenges now are about the speed of the change and the nature and extended nature of this episode. From what we've been able to observe so far from all our schools is generally we're all doing pretty well in this time of uncertainty. But to state the obvious, school communities is the one constant in the lives of many in our community. So they're looking to our leadership for guidance. And it's a lot more than just the curriculum. And with a lot going on and changing daily, you become a bit of their source of truth. You just can't assume a set and forget strategy. It's better to have a series of principles to guide you to prepare rather than a plan off the shelf. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these key elements that I talk about. And then what I'll do is I'll go and start talking about each one individually. Firstly, ensure that you've got a well-practiced broadcast and communication system that your community is familiar with. Secondly, have a well-organised incident management team, and I do stress team. Thirdly, have a clear set of procedures in place. You just cannot afford to make it up in real time. Fourthly, make sure that you provide clear and actionable messaging. Fifthly, have a media plan prepared for when the media becomes involved. And I'm sorry to say, they will become involved. And finally, once this episode is over, make sure that you have a review process in place. So if they're the principles, let's just unpack that a little bit for you. The first and central part of this is you need to have this central spine that all the management plans have. And most of you already have that in place. And that's the communication system. And whatever you choose, it needs to be clear to all members of your community at this critical time. So the question is not how do you communicate with your community, but rather, how do they know you're communicating with them? The system needs to allow you to use both email and SMS to suit your community needs. It needs to be able to allow you to segment your community. To be able to communicate to different parts is really essential. You don't want to always be sending the same message to a whole group, especially if you've got campuses, year level, pastoral groups, even your alumni who'll need to want to hear from you about what's happening. And then whatever system you use, you need to be able to track that communication to ensure that your receivers have opened it and they're carrying out the instructions that you've asked of them. So if you're already using EdSmart, you've got a bit of an advantage here because a lot changing around them. And going to online learning has been a magnificent experience for schools, parents, and for schools and parents. And so as one of our EdSmart schools have said to me just recently, it's good to have something that they're familiar with during this time of uncertainty. So no matter what you're using, keep using what they know. Schools have continued to send newsletters, albeit a lot shorter, of course. The principal in most cases has used us or some system to send schools, the school's official position and instructions. They've used us to survey parents and students about everything from well-being to the IT capacity of their households. And these are just a few examples I've come across. I know, Fiona, you've been speaking to a lot of our schools in the last few days, and you've got some other examples that you can share with everyone.
Yes, we've heard from a few of our schools now. Fortunately, we took the point of view of our schools on this crisis about a month ago, and we helped some schools to set up their templates for coronavirus updates and to be ready for whole of school announcements like school closure. So when announcements have come from premiers and prime ministers, our schools have by and large been ready. Look, they're super busy. I've reached out to a few, and hello to one of our New Zealand schools, Diocesan School for Girls, Mary Brooks. Thanks for joining us today. I want to get in touch with you, but beyond this, but Adelaide Botanic in South Australia, they're a brand new flagship STEAM school run by the government, state government. Their principal initiated nightly updates about 3 weeks ago on the coronavirus, the latest status to all parents, and has been able to keep a tight rein around the narrative in the school community, including all of the factual information about status updates. And that's helped to keep the school community informed and connected. Another one of our schools who has been in touch, Jackie Layfield, who runs EdSmart throughout the school at Luther College. She's been using parent slips, and look, one of these things is something that's day-to-day, bread and butter. Everybody does it if you're an EdSmart customer, but it really comes into its own in an emergency. Being able to easily see who's opened and read communication. So when parents are not reading the notices they're sending, the school's following up in other ways. They can send further notices, but also they're calling and pressuring a bit more. We know of several non-EdSmart schools who are phoning all their parents en masse. This is laborious, and I'm sure if you're principal listening, you know that that's putting a lot of pressure on your staff. You may need them to preserve their energy for later. Luther has EdSmart embedded in their LMS, and that means every time a parent logs in, they can see all new and also past notifications. Where this is a standout is that it is way better if they want to go back over factual information to find that than going back through their email inbox. Also, with our platform, she's able to CC relevant staff members, which means that class teachers know exactly which parents have received which notices, even if it's a whole school notice. The school staff sometimes are missed in talking to the community, so they can be easily included in factual updates. Also, there's our elder sibling functionality Luther College have been using. They have families that have multiple siblings at the school. You don't want the same message coming to you over and over again, particularly not in times like these. They can use this functionality in order to have one message go home to the family. Jackie says, look, the biggest issue for the school has been making sure everyone got the same information at the same time, and EdSmart's enabled Luther College to enact its communications during the crisis exactly according to their school's emergency plan. And the third example, I've been able to chat with Alison Forster, who's responsible for the technology that drives these 26 schools in the Cairns Catholic Education Office. That's a really interesting network. The geographical reach of the group is from Cairns through to Thursday Island, the Atherton Tablelands, and all of the patch in between. The first thing they did was set up their messaging templates several weeks ago, and we helped them with that, and then shared them across all of their schools. And that's enabled consistency in messaging across the whole group and an efficiency of effort. Some specific things their schools are using EdSmart for, and these are some good tips. Forms showing how students can access IT resources from home, and also securing parental permissions so that they can do so. Resending and securing agreement about the use of IT resources in the home setting. Using EdSmart to separate groups, like for those who need to send their children to school because of their type of work, what to do, what's expected and what's different, practical information. Alison's final words to me were that the staff in her schools are, look, this is just, as I said, bread and butter for some other functionality, the same thing, but it's a tracking capability they're really in love with at the moment. For example, the analytics enable you to see at a glance the home IT and internet access for all school students. And that was really, really appreciated by one of the remote rural principals. Our schools have been super busy, but we expect more anecdotes and welcome more anecdotes to be shared with us in coming weeks. And we're working to create a blog post and possibly a webinar on the best tips to share with other schools. Over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Fiona. So the next one is to ensure that you have a well-organised team around the principal. Not only because it appears that this is going to last some long period of time, but also to make sure that you care for the principal, who instinctively will overwork themselves because they'll want to take care of everyone. So who should be on this team? It's really school specific, I know, depending on your size and structure, but critically the following people, you would be called upon or involved. And that's obviously led by the principal and the chair of a council or parent group, depends on your structure, the deputy principal, a communication expert of some form, or your marketing person, the school counsellor, psychologist, wellbeing coordinator, someone who's in charge of your human resources and your staffing, of course, some medical advisor or health expert, the business manager, and importantly, the office administrator. Not only should each of them have a specific role rather than just sitting around a table, it's important that your community knows who they are and what areas they speak to, and the fact that when they do speak, you're speaking as one voice. And that's really important as a team. Thirdly, it's imperative to have a clear set of procedures in place so that you're not making decisions on the run. And I know things are changing quickly, but you're actually getting good at this now. You've been doing this now for 2 or 3 weeks. You're starting to predict the things that come. And if you can get what's coming on the agenda rather than what do we do now, you're starting to take control and put things in place. You'll need to have procedures around who communicates, remembering you're a team. Who's communicated to and what's communicated. And also importantly, who authorises that communication. So you need a system to allow you to have those pieces well worked out, and it becomes second nature to the team. Remembering that when you speak, you are speaking to lots of different audiences, and it takes time to think through the language you're using that's appropriate for some and not for others. The uncertainty surrounding, obviously, COVID-19 and the rapidly changing government advice for schools and businesses means these procedures are really more important than ever. Fourthly, it's not helpful to parents to receive notifications or updates without some form of instruction and you telling them what you want to do with this information. Even if it reads, I am just telling you this so that you're aware. Aware is fine. They'll know what to do with that. But if you want them to respond in a certain way, make that clear to them. They're getting bombarded with information all the time when they're all at home. So be clear about what you want them to do with any specific piece of information. This is where your communication expert comes in. They should be someone who can work calmly and may become in what may become an emotionally charged situation. At the moment, everything's pretty regular, but hopefully you're not faced with some serious consequences as a school. And so you need to have someone there whose job it is to make sure that they are thinking clearly around that communication. They should be able to, they should have the ability to create clear and succinct messaging. Keeping your messages precise during this period is especially crucial as the situation is constantly changing and developing. You just can't keep repeating the same message. It's also important to consider the different communication vehicles that you're using and what's most appropriate when. If you as a school are using multiple communication channels, like you're using broadcasts, SMS, emails, and some schools are using social media pages, make sure that you direct everyone back to the one source of truth. As information can change hourly, and keeping that up to date is far easier when you only have one page, other than having to continue to communicate via each of the channels and update all of them. So use the channels to funnel people to the one piece of information that you want them to receive. Fifthly, have a media plan in place. Why? Because the media will become involved. And I assure you, just when you don't need them to be there, even though they're doing a great job at the moment in keeping the messages clear. Because the longer this episode runs, they're going to be looking for more stories and different angles. So therefore, prepare some of the predictable things that you can work towards. One is, who's going to speak to the school, speak to the media on behalf of the school? What type of stories will you support? And what type of stories do you not want to get involved in? Always ask the media if they contact you for some time to consult with your colleagues. Don't feel under pressure that you have to give them a statement or a comment there and then. And finally, once this episode is over, and it will end, ensure there's a review process in place. It's not, it may not happen hopefully for another 5, 10, 50, 100 years, we hope. But this is the document that team will come to when that occurs. And so make sure it's worth their while. If you've been listening to this webinar and ticking off the pieces along the way, and it all sounds familiar, then that's excellent. Because one of the goals we had in the webinar was to provide a sense of reassurance to everyone that you're doing the right thing. There's no perfect solution, but having these elements can ensure that your management plan will allow you to manage whatever's thrown at you as a school and a community. And I go back to where I started, and that is that your community will look to leadership from you. You are the closest source of authority to them. So we're here to support you. You're there to support your community. And together, I'm sure we'll get through all of this. So they're the elements I think that I would strongly suggest people have in their management plan. Fiona, and back to you.
Remember, you belong to a community of partners who want nothing but the best for your school. Everyone is here trying their best to provide you services and helpful advice as you need it. We're proud of our partners. If you check out our COVID-19 SOS kit for schools, and you can get this from our website, you'll find a list of our partners. There's a lot of LMSs that we integrate with there, but also useful information that our partners are sharing. One example I'd like to share is a link from our integration partner, Digistorm, that talks directly about communicating with parents during a crisis, and we're sure this will be very useful for you. We've also compiled a handy list of global resources that is relevant across the world for schools. If you want to know more about EdSmart, whilst we are super busy supporting our current schools customers, we do have bandwidths to talk to new intending customers. And given everyone is about to be a bit quieter for a period, you may want to investigate EdSmart as your communications, compliance and governance platform. As in time, hopefully sooner rather than later, but as in time we move to the other side of the coronavirus crisis and you start planning for school to resume. Communications to have the school community informed and starting back on the same page will be really valuable given the high price many have paid and the emotional toll that will have been taken on your school community. Please feel free to get in touch with me personally, fiona@edsmart.com. And if you'd like to talk to Sam, just email me and I'll connect you up with Sam. I'll put you in touch. For now, thank you for your attendance. Wherever in the world you are, good luck. Keep looking after your school community. And we've got some Q&As, time for question and answers. Sam, have you got a question there?
One of the first questions I think we were asked was, are you able to access the slides of this presentation? And I think you've answered that. We'll send those out to everyone straight after this particular webinar. Yeah. So that's the first question I've got.
Okay, Sam, I'll just ask for one for you. We have a number of schools who we've been talking to over the last year who have had very close to becoming EdSmart customers and then didn't straight away because they were otherwise engaged in managing this crisis. Tell me how schools who actually want to get going with EdSmart, are we able to do that in a way that takes account of the fact that their staff are under a lot of pressure right now?
Look, absolutely. We've actually got a really sound practice of onboarding schools and getting data and training people up and then getting them ready to send out. Now that's usually a 3-week period. At this particular point of time, obviously, that's not possible, that you get all your staff and train them up. So I know that we're looking at a service that we can provide people where we will send out all your forms during this period of time. And from there, you can be assured that you're being communicated to, and we'll keep all of that going for you in the background until your staff are ready to take over.
So I've got a question that is, what else do we have planned to help our schools during the coronavirus? So we continue to help on our customer support experience side on helping them set up templates and some new processes that they haven't enacted before. So we're there working side by side with them. And so that's one of the things we're doing now. More broadly, we think the next level of help we can give schools is all around controlling the communication. EdSmart naturally does that because it is an official channel to parents, students and staff, but to parents, it's how permissions for things like excursions are gathered. So parents are well used to using EdSmart and responding in a very official capacity. So any communication that comes from EdSmart is taken really seriously by the parent body. But we'll be giving a bit more help around the different communications to the different stakeholders in your school. So look out for another webinar and some blog posts and resources on that from the EdSmart team. And also, look, I think at a time like this, we can draw on our own knowledge, but we'd like to hear from you. So if you have got some pressing need that you think we can pull some people from our school community together to create resources or a webinar, please feel free to email us or email me personally, fiona@edsmart.com. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And yep, very open to helping you how you need to be helped.
Fiona, sorry, there was another question about templates. And so any school that is interested in using EdSmart and needs to get this going quickly, one of the things that we can do is help set up those templates for you very quickly in the beginning. And so have those ready for your teams to be able to send out. So all the school has to do is enter the information they want to send out, especially in the broadcast templates. And that will cut short the training that schools need to have during this period. So that's one of the questions we were asked about templates.
I think that's it with the questions. Thank you for joining us today, whatever your time zone. We've really appreciated you giving us your attention. Let us know how we can help you, and good luck. Keep looking after your school community, but please keep looking after you and your team and stay safe. Goodbye.